Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining in for this little special module that I want to talk about, something I'm really passionate about. We did an episode recently called Strategies for Album Artwork, and I talked about a bunch of different tips and ideas that you can do with album branding and with album artwork and different things. But one of them was this concept of artwork as album branding. And I want to kind of expand on that today. I really want to kind of blow that up so that you can see exactly what I mean. I think it takes visual examples and some of my pitching to you to explain why I think it's important. It's something I'm really passionate about. As a music fan, I love to see when it's done. It helps me as a listener connect the dots for an album campaign. And it's something that I really want to share with you guys, and I think you're going to find it helpful. There are benefits for branding, and now we're going to talk about some of the marketing side of things, and this might sound a little corporate and yucky, but bear with me for a couple minutes, and then we'll break off into the more artistic side of things, and I'm going to show you a lot of examples. So the benefits of branding is it improves customer experience, which fosters trust. And so, excuse me, what ends up happening is that we see something, or there's this consistent messaging from a brand, or a consistent color, or a consistent font, and all of a sudden, subconsciously, now we can trust that brand. It's a brand that we like. Or inversely, it's something that their messaging we don't like, and their aesthetic we don't like, and we know to stay away from that brand. And so that's something that happens a lot. The other thing it does is it protects the brand from imitators, and it also protects the brand from tangents that kind of deviate from your core mission. And we'll kind of get into that and what that might mean for your label or for an album release. But that's really important, is that there are brands or there are companies that try to knock off a popular brand or ride their coattails. And so these are the kind of things, if you've ever worked in the corporate world in marketing or design, you might be familiar with like a style guide or a brand guideline. And this is similar to that. And I want to show you a way we can kind of copy that model and put it onto a new release for a band and for an artist on our label, and in a way really help the band and help the release and help the artist. And brand repetition, the final thing is that brand repetition creates brand awareness. And look at these examples at the bottom. Gun to your head, you could probably tell me what major brands those are just by looking at it. The orange is consistent. The blue and yellow, that might be a tricky one. And of course, the red and white one, that's Coke. So it's Home Depot, IKEA, and Coke. This is the type of thing where if you are 20 feet or 100 feet away from these signs, and all you see is this glowing orange and that kind of ugly font that they have, that's a Home Depot. And this brand awareness happens when you're driving down the highway and you're looking for a restaurant or you're looking for a Home Depot. You can spot that glowing orange from the distance and you know where it is. And I want to talk about how we pull that super strange and weird connection into the music world. And it happens to me all the time when people share a new single on Instagram or on Spotify, or they post it online, and I check it out and I like it a lot, but the album is still maybe 2 months away. Then all of a sudden I kind of forget about it. But if the album artwork shares the artwork with the single, then when I see that album artwork, I'm like, oh, I recognize that from somewhere. And it's even happened in record stores where I've heard a single, I've heard an album online, and then I've been in a record store and I've seen it from across the way, and I go and check it out. Yeah, one of our labels that we interviewed a while ago, Paper Bag Records, they're Canadian. They have these Obi strips, these little cardboard strips that go on the spine of all of their vinyl underneath their the cellophane, and it's something that comes off and the customer discards it when they buy the record. But in a record store from a far distance, you can tell any record that is a paper bag record because of these Obi strips. I think that's important. The objective of why I think this is important about creating a brand, listen, I'm going to get into visuals, so please stay with me. This is not going to be so boring, but I think you're going to find this really helpful. The objective is one parent design for the main LP or EP. So I say parent, think of it like a family tree maybe, and it's it's basically the idea where everything branches off from that top design. So we create something that is transferable and moldable, so that we can design for auxiliary releases. And by that, I mean lead up singles and B-sides and other remixes that you do, but also on merch and on posters, et cetera, et cetera. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I love that. It's like tattooed on my brain, and I try to live by that a lot. And I hate getting into an album campaign or into a process of something and realizing I wish that I had stopped a few months ago to plan this out, because if I had everything together, it would have worked a lot better. So the benefits for doing this album branding, and again, some examples are coming, so bear with me. I find it easier. Ultimately, it's just easier. I think when you and the band or the artist comes up with an album cover that you're excited about, that you really like, you have the responsibility then to create artwork for singles and artwork for tour posters or for merchandise. And it's easier when you say, hey, let's just branch off of this. It will keep everything looking consistent, and it just makes your job easier. And it might even be cheaper if you're hiring a designer to say, can you take that design and now just rearrange things and make a tour poster, as opposed to hiring multiple designers for multiple different assets. I find this to be much, much easier. It also creates album awareness with new listeners. I've talked about this a couple of minutes ago, drawing a line from the digital world to the record store or the live show. And the biggest thing is it extends the album's life cycle. This is a problem, I know. I've talked to you that we release an album on Friday, and by Monday or Tuesday, people have forgotten about that, or they're looking for something new. And I believe that doing something like this can create this longevity for the record, that 6 months to a year later, you can be doing something that looks like the main album and reminds people, oh yeah, I forgot to check out that record. I think it's really important. This is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to break out these examples. Right there in the middle is the main artwork. Now, first of all, let me just give a little caveat here. This is my artwork for my latest record. Now, why am I doing this? Is this shameless self-promotion? No, I don't care. Don't listen to this music. I don't care. I have all of the rights to use this. And this is just an example. I was able to do this on my last campaign in 2018 and 2019, and I want to share it with you. And this is just an example. If I had another example that I was allowed to use, I would. And two things. If you don't like this idea, if you're of the genre or of the mindset or the aesthetic that you think everything should be chaotic and everything should look different, then shut this down and do it your way. That's totally cool. This is something I'm passionate about. I really like. I'm committed to doing on my releases, on major LPs, on my label, and for my own stuff, as long as the artist is on board. And it's just something I find to be very helpful and makes the whole process more enjoyable. And I think it's better for the listener. So this is my example here. We've got some singles on the left, some remix stuff on the right, and physical down on the bottom, and the parent artwork in the middle. And so the other thing is I want to show you some examples. And again, listen, if you don't like my example that I am going to be using here, then that's okay. The principles still apply. If you think this is hideous, that's all right. Some do. You can still apply the principles to your own thing. Here's some examples in the real world. Tycho in 2014, I think this record was called Awake. This was on Ghostly, I think, whom I love. And you can see the parent album is at top, and then the two singles are on the bottom. And look how easy that would be. Now, that guy, Scott, is a graphic designer, so he had things a little bit easier to manage. But you can see how he just manipulated or inverted the same colors to create that. Top example up there is in 2020. This is something that came out just a couple weeks ago. Great design, great designer. And you can see the main artwork there in black, and then they played off of the blue and red and white with I think that was a lyric video up in the top there, and then a single down at the bottom. And then shooting back 15 years ago to Coldplay, and again, you might not like this artwork, but it's just an example of how something is spread out. and with Coldplay X and Y in 2005. The navy blue is the main artwork. And then there was 3 singles afterwards, Fix You, Speed of Sound, and Talk, where they used this Morse code design. This is great because coming up with this design for Coldplay may have taken months, using some sort of alpha coding, Morse code thing with color scheme. They somehow came up with this design. And then once that was done, creating all of this auxiliary stuff was easy because they just followed the template that they had. And I really like it. I liked the artwork for Talk on that cream background. I feel like that should have been the main artwork. But anyway, those are some examples just to show you that I'm not crazy. So let's go back, and I want to branch this out, and I want to go back to the very beginning. And so this was the album artwork for my latest record that I created, and I came up with it about 1.5 years before the release. It was something I just stumbled upon. What we have here is some misshapen vector shapes. And then there's a font in the middle, Worried Mind, and the text is kind of jagged a little bit. That's a Footlight font. And then there's a secondary font used for my name and the label code. There's a cream background, and then overlaid on everything is this kind of distressed texture. This was something that I stumbled upon. I really liked it. I liked the use of red and blue. Those primary colors were really nice. The cream was soft and peaceful. It just worked for me. If you don't like it, that's okay. The principles will still apply. Another thing I should mention is that in this case, and I know you're going to complain about this, but in this case, I am the artist, I am the label, and I am the graphic designer who did this. And so I have an advantage. I have that advantage where I don't need approval. I didn't need to pitch this idea to anyone. I was able to keep everything consistent because it all happened in my brain. And I sympathize with you folks out there who want to do something like this, but are working with a band, and everyone has different opinions, and some people may not buy into this concept. But hopefully you can run them through this. You can show them some of those other examples. You can show them this example, and maybe everybody can get on board. So we had the parent artwork that came out. These were the subsequent singles. No Phone came out about 8 months before. That's why it's a little bit different until I kind of caught a vision that I wanted to do. And then Seasons came out in August, and then a couple weeks later, Fall Apart, and Sometime, leading right up into the album release. And so everything kind of shares. And remember I talked at the beginning about how it's easier to do this. When I opened up the Photoshop document for this parent artwork, you can then just grab those shapes, move them around, stretch them out big, take the font, type in the single name, twist it around, do something different, and everything looks consistent, but it was super easy to do. And so these are the singles. This is social media. And again, just taking that artwork and moving around. We have an Instagram story and a Facebook banner. I think it's really important. I think that when you release a new single, it has a certain look, a certain artwork to it. Somebody goes, I want to check out that band. They go to their Instagram, they go to their Facebook, and when they find this Worried Mind banner, they know I'm at the right place. This is, this matches the song that I just heard on a playlist on Spotify, and now I'm hopping over to find more about the artist. It's basically you telling the listener, yep, you're in the right place. Come look around. You found the artist you're looking for. Now, remember I talked about the longevity of an album campaign, like bringing out, making it last longer, and increasing the life cycle. And this is something I know all of us are concerned with and passionate about. These are 2 B-side singles. So they were recorded during the recording process of the album, but I left them off the album. It just didn't work for me, but I still liked them a little bit. And so the album came out in October of 2018. And then the first B-side came out in late January of 2019. So basically after Christmas, I decided I wanted to kind of remind people, oh, hey, remember back in the fall, I released a record. And so I released this B-side single, This Is How I Want to Feel Forever. It did pretty well. And I'd like to think that the people who found that song somehow went back and checked out Worried Mind that they maybe missed, or people who had listened to Worried Mind, but then it got buried in their iTunes library were like, oh, I should go back and listen to that record now that I have more time. And the same idea about 4 or 5 months later with the next single, Stay Awake on the Phone. This was a B-side. It was something I was still fairly proud of, but it didn't fit on the cohesive 9-song record. And so I released it in like May, I think. So now we're like at least 6 months or more from the album release. And it's still just saying, same artwork. Hey, remember that record? And actually I had the vinyl coming out at that same time. And so I used this B-side as a way to remind people about the record and to remind people that the vinyl was coming out. I want you to keep in mind, if you are a major label or you're a label that has a big budget, they do this life cycle thing different than we do. And I talked to a big size label recently, but a lot of them, as a way to kind of extend the life cycle, will do multiple videos and release those videos sometimes even a year after the album came out, or 6 months after the album came out. The Grammys nominees will come out and they'll get nominated, and then they'll appear on Colbert. A lot of the labels listening to this and watching this video don't have that advantage. I don't have that advantage right now. And so there's these little tricks and little things that we need to do to kind of try to keep the momentum going, or keep our music in the minds of our listeners, and to hopefully find new listeners. What you're seeing now is the artwork for the instrumental album. And so this came along because, and what I think is so beautiful about this process, and I hope you're seeing it too, is that songwriters spend years writing a record, and we write these 9 or 10 songs or more, and we pay musicians to record and to play on our records, and we pay people to mix them and engineer them and master these records. And then we release these 10 songs into the world, and then they evaporate. And if nobody listens to it and no playlist picks it up or radio station picks it up, then they just disappear. What I love about this concept that I'm talking about today, and with this instrumental record and with the B-sides, is it's kind of giving respect to these writers and saying, you know, we are going to try to continue to breathe life into these beautiful songs that we believe in and help them reach people. And it's changed my perspective when I'm writing for a new record, is thinking, I'm writing these songs. This song could be a B-side. This song could be an acoustic version down the road. And I find it inspiring as a songwriter to know that I'm not going to write this song that I pour my heart into, and it gets released and nobody pays attention to it, and then it just disappears into space. This instrumental album came along when I was asked to take some of the songs and remove the vocals and the background vocals for potential sync licensing purposes. So I opened up the mixes in Pro Tools and I muted all the vocals and created mix downs of these 9 songs from the record. And I realized, wow, this is beautiful. Like, this is really chill music. It's like bragging a little bit, but basically I realized how much I enjoyed my music when I didn't have to listen to my own voice. And I was like, this sounds kind of cool. I wonder if I could release this as an instrumental album for people who like the music, but maybe want to listen to it in a different context, like when they're studying or when they're trying to sleep. And so this is, and you know what? It didn't cost me anything. It took me a few minutes just to mute all the vocals. And some people say I should have done that in the first place on the main album, but whatever. So I created this instrumental record. The artwork was really simple. You can see what's happened here. I took the main artwork. I just created outlines for everything, which not only was really easy and really quick, but there's a little bit of a subliminal message here that it's the same artwork, but different, and something's missing. And so I had 3 singles that led up to this instrumental record. And you know what? For $0, I think this came out like 6 months. I think it came out in like February or March after the album. So about 6 months after the record came out. And this was really well received. I think it was like anybody who listened to that record and enjoyed it was able to listen to it in a different context. It got like the whole instrumental album got over like 45,000 streams total. And so that's great. You know, that's a big deal for me. And I'm really glad that I did it. It felt a little opportunistic, but a lot of people kind of commented that it was just something nice to have, and I'll probably do it again. And I really encourage you, if you are of the genre where you can do this and this makes sense, and it may take a little bit of tweaking in your mixes so it doesn't sound so awkward, but I think it's something that is worth a try. In the summer, so now we're almost a year, I went to a studio and recorded all 9 songs from the album live off the floor, and with a piano player, my friend Gareth, and we brought a photographer to shoot film. So this is the one time in the album artwork campaign where we used photos, but I wanted it to be a little bit different, a little bit more organic, because it was the acoustic versions of all 9 songs. So same songs, same track listing, essentially the same format of everything, but an acoustic version. And I had a couple lead up singles that led up to this Worried Mind acoustic version, something I've always done. And it's something that's really easy to do. You don't have to go to a pro studio. I honestly believe you could turn on your iPhone or a Zoom recorder if you're a punk band, if you're electronic band, whatever, and just do these live performances, these acoustic versions. And I think fans will really like it. This is the physical, so you can see the vinyl where we carried out the design. The red and blue were carried. The font was used throughout. The kind of that chaotic, worried look is brought out. Please don't bring attention to the blue blob in the vinyl. That was something I couldn't control. I'm a little disappointed with, but lesson learned. Let's move on. So this is basically everything, again, that you see. The main parent artwork there, the physical down. On the right side was the acoustic album and the instrumental album. I did a little Christmas single that bombed. And then just recently, I released an EP that I took all of the versions of the song Fall Apart and a couple of new remixes and put them on one EP. And then on the far left side are all the singles and the B-sides. And so, again, if you don't like this artwork, I forgive you. That's okay. Close your eyes and imagine what this would look like with artwork that you like or that your band likes, and spreading this out to create this consistent look and feel across the whole campaign. Here's some final tips, and then I'll leave you. And I'm really curious to hear what you think about this. Choose artwork that can be easily branched out. So sometimes the person might want a picture of them on the cover holding their guitar. That becomes a little bit more challenging to branch out into 20 different ways and to create a cassette out of and to create t-shirt merch. The way you can do that is to try to keep the aesthetic the same, have the same, maybe introduce some sort of color, the same typography. One thing I try to tell artists to do when they're going out on a photo shoot is have the photographer take like one hero image and then a few other candid, cool images that can be used for singles. I should have said this at the beginning, but a lot of DSPs and I know iTunes and CD Baby require you to have different artwork for the single than for the album. So you can't, and some people do it and get away with it. I don't know how, but you can't use the album art as the single art. They require something different. And so that puts a little bit of a challenge for us, or it's an opportunity to be creative. But if you're doing photos, you might want to think about taking multiple different photos that can be used for your singles. And remember I said at the beginning, failing to plan is planning to fail. Think about this process at the very beginning of putting the album together, because then you can be thinking, hey, we should come up with a photo to update our Spotify image whenever we release the acoustic album, which is in 8 months from now. You know what I mean? Save layered files in high resolution. This is something that was mentioned in our free guide by Molly Smith, who works at Ghostly International, one of the greatest labels on the planet and one of the most, the best labels for design on the planet. And she talked about the importance of this. This cannot be overstated. Save high resolution layered files in PSD if you can, or vector. and save those forever, because what happens is people create these tiny little digital artwork. They do it on their phone or whatever. They upload it to DistroKid or whatever. It gets up on Spotify. And then a couple months later, they're like, hey, we should make shirts. Or in my case, somebody came along and said, hey, can we do the vinyl for you? We just need the artwork. And I'm like, of course. And it was great that I had the high resolution layered files that could be expanded up to 12 by 12. So that's really important. Show artists examples of this idea in action. I mean, there's a lot of labels like Sacred Bones that do this, and Geographic North that do this. I showed you examples early on. You can do your own examples, or let them watch this video and show them the benefit of it. Because I really do. I know that a lot of this is kind of seeing how the sausage is made and is a little bit uncomfortable, but I really do believe that it helps the listener find our music and stay connected to us. And, if you're a music fan, how many times you've heard a song and you go looking to find it and you go to their Bandcamp and you're like, is this the same artist? I think it is. I can't tell. And then you hop over to their Spotify page or their Facebook page and you're just not sure, or you don't know how to find, you don't even know what label they're on. I do think this is really important. Another tip I'll say, if you're working with a band with a lot of people, try to centralize the approval process. If one person is working on the vinyl pressing and another person is doing the t-shirts, try to create some sort of digital or physical vision board in your office or online with everything that you've done so far. Pin it up there so you can stand back and look at the overall consistency of your album campaign. And it'll be really rewarding. It'll be really encouraging and exciting. And the artists will be like, man, this label really knows what they're doing. Create a shared folder that contains the layered artwork, high-res album cover, a press photo, fonts used on the artwork, other design elements like the label logo, or if the band has a logo. I think that's really important to do. And just having that bookmarked is so handy throughout this whole process. Okay, conclusion. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sure a lot of you have dropped off if you're not on board with this, but this is basically everything I wanted to say. One parent artwork for the main EP or LP, preceding and subsequent singles that share the same design aesthetic as the parent artwork. A design aesthetic like colors and fonts and logos carried through into merch, physical media, videos, and posters, and stay organized. Keep the high resolution files together, a shared folder with design assets, plan ahead and centralize the approval process. I think it will really help. Maybe a lot of you are like, of course, this is something I do all the time. And I think that's great. A lot of you may be watching this and going, this is not for me. This is not for my label. And that's okay too. And I might even change my mind. I've changed my mind on artwork philosophies over the years many times. And it's quite possible in 5 years from now, I will have everything disjointed and be intentionally chaotic with an album campaign. And maybe that in itself is the campaign. I'm not sure. But as it stands right now, it's something that I try to do to bring consistency to the whole thing. And I've heard a lot of people recently talking about the commodification of art and how it's kind of an uneasy topic to talk about. But to me, this all is part of the art process. When I'm writing music, I'm thinking about the artwork. I'm thinking about the video. To me, it's all part of the process. And to have something feel seamless, to have it have this consistent brand, quote unquote, it, for me, is an artistic statement. It's something that I'm proud of and I really enjoy doing. I'd love to have your feedback. You can email me. Listen, if you want to try this, and you have some specific questions, just email me at podcast@otherrecordlabels.com. And I'd be glad to help you out or to take a look at what you're working on, because I'm just extremely passionate about this. Go to otherrecordlabels.com to sign up to our mailing list and check out past episodes, including the episode strategies for album artwork, where I talk more about album artwork. And again, you can email me at podcast@otherrecordlabels.com. Thanks so much.